Hi, I'm Marc Randolph, co-founder of Netflix and 6 other companies. Over the years, I've heard that will never work thousands of times, but I've learned there are things we all can do to increase the chances that they will. So join me for That Will Never Work. Hey everyone. Today's episode of That Will Never Work is a little bit different. Today we're actually filming live and in person here at High Point University in High Point, North Carolina. I'm here in their high-end production studio speaking with student entrepreneurs for a special student edition of That Will Never Work. Today I'm speaking with Ivana Karanchi, who is a graduate student in pharmacy, who's invented a product called the Flasky. I think she has some questions about where to take this product and perhaps what her next steps are as an entrepreneur. Well, let's meet Ivana now. Good morning, Ivana.
Hi, nice to see you.
It's great to have you on That Will Never Work. I'm really excited to hear what you're working on. So I'd love to hear a little bit about your progress. What is Flasky? And then maybe we could get to what you want to talk about.
Well, first, Mark, thank you for having me. I really appreciate this. So Flasky is a device. I've been, for the past 4 years, a lab researcher here at High Point University. And they always give the lab researchers the tasks nobody wants to do. But when we make medications and drugs, we make them in these very specific bottles called round bottom flasks. So they're shaped like a light bulb, and they have a small opening, and they have a big volume flask at the bottom.
So I got to ask you a question. So is that an Erlenmeyer flask or is that something different?
Totally different. Totally different.
That's all I know from my chemistry class back in high school. There's a round one and then there's the triangular one, right?
Yes.
Okay, we're talking about the round one.
Yep, the round one.
Okay,
correct. Yeah. So with this round one, when we use it, we always have this flashback of all the whatever components we put into it come right back up on the walls of the flask. And so this always happens 100% of the time. Everyone knows it's going to happen. And so we have a tool to use to scrape it out. So we use something shaped like a pencil to go right into the flask and scrape the contents out. But the tool is very ineffective. What it is it's a straight piece going into a circular object. And so it doesn't work really well. We always have to conform it, bend it. And I just spent so many hours trying to figure out what can I do to solve this problem, to scrape things out of this flask much faster.
I gotta back up for a second.
Yeah.
So this seems to be the problem of the flask, not the cleaning tool. Is the flask, and for those people who are watching it on video, and you can see the little flasks, I assume these are what you're talking about. Yes,
absolutely.
But is that design where it's a round with a narrow neck designed to keep things from splashing out? Is that why they do it like that?
Yeah, so it's actually
as opposed to doing it in a beaker. You see, I'm paying attention.
So it's actually designed this way because it's part of a couple of another device. So it's like the other half of a bigger device called a rotary evaporator. I know.
Okay, we're going down a path I can tell already is going to be trouble.
Yeah, so one can't be without the other.
Okay.
So it kind of is stuck to this round-shaped flask.
All right, so you're sitting here struggling, trying to clean out a round device with a linear little pencil-like thing.
Absolutely.
And what happens? You're getting frustrated, it's not working?
Yeah, absolutely. It's taking 20 minutes to do a task that if we had a better device to clean it, could take maybe 5 minutes,
okay,
2 minutes.
And then inspiration strikes?
Yeah, somewhat like that. I started realizing, hey, let me go online, figure out what I can do about this, and tell my lab instructor, like maybe we can find a new device. But I couldn't find anything out there. So I think a lot of trial runs hit before inspiration hit. But yeah, I tested everything. I was like, oh, okay, I know what I need. I need something that has multiple pieces that can conform and bend like an elbow joint, and we'll be all set.
So Flasky is born.
Yes.
You want to show me, you have one here?
Absolutely. So like I was saying.
Show me the old one first, or is
yeah, absolutely. So this is what we currently use, the flask. And this is what the flask looks like empty.
So you got a picture, it's kind of like one of those little dental tools
Yes.
that are all lined up on the tray next to you when you're having a dentist appointment. It's like a stick with a little scraper at the end of it. Okay.
Yep, and I actually have two, so if you want to hold one.
Oh, look at this. Okay. Do I need safety glasses or a lead apron or anything like that to do this?
Hopefully we'll both be fine.
This is ridiculous. This is the state of the art for cleaning out that little thing?
Absolutely, and you see how full it is.
Oh my God, that's a mess.
Yeah, so you can go ahead and stick it right down in there.
No, I can't. This is crazy. No way.
Yeah, and
Okay,
so this is what...
I see the idea. Am I gonna like poison myself with this stuff?
That's so funny.
I'm not gonna touch it.
But yes, so
Okay.
typically we use this, and this is what we do. We'll have it bent on one side, and we'll just kind of tilt it in and be like, okay, we're gonna get that bottom 60% scraped off just like that. And
Okay.
we take our time.
I can see how this sucks already. Okay.
Yeah, but what I decided to do was to invent a hook shape. This is like Captain Hook's pirate
I
hook.
see. It's brilliant.
Yeah, that snakes into the flask and actually does a one swipe clean. So you just snake it in, and to clean the top half of the flask,
Oh, look at that.
you get it all cleared out without actually having to bend anything with those stainless steel spatulas. And then to get the bottom half of the flask, you just push it down a little bit more.
All right, I get the idea.
Half. Yeah.
Pretty cool. Self-evidently better. Is that size flask? Is that the right word?
Yes.
Is it one size always, or do you have to have a whole array of these tools for the different size flasks?
So yes and no. So this flask right here that we have here is a 500. And then we have multiple 500 flasks. And then we also have 250, 150. So we have different volumes of flasks. But all the tools would have to be per volume.
Okay, so you buy a whole set, or you buy it with the flask, or a bunch of ways, different ways you could partner it up.
Yeah.
No, this is going to be a completely ridiculous segue, but my closest I come to being a chemist is I'm a winemaker. I have a home winemaker, and we're working with 5-gallon glass jars.
Okay.
And it's the same thing because they get stained and dirty, and you are trying to clean out the inside of this thing with this ridiculous brush. So there's another market for you after you conquer this one. Where are you with this? How far along is it? Have you sold any? Give me the status of the business.
Well, yeah. So it's kind of been incredible because I started in June of last year, and I was like, okay, like I want to do this. I want to call companies. And I called everyone. Settled on a company, and I got a device 3 months later that was horrendous. It's this thing. And this was what I envisioned that I wanted. Something that scientists could take apart really easily. Let's see if I can actually manage to take it apart. But 3 pieces so that scientists could be able to take it apart and clean the flask, sterilize it. And I thought, okay, everything's gonna be great. Then I'll be able to move into like mass production. I'll be able to sell to people. But no, that didn't actually work out. When I tried it out, I was like, this is not gonna work. And I don't know if I can make other people feel like it works too. So 2 months ago, I called a new person and I was like, okay, here's what I have. Can we do a new design? And he was like, I think—
industrial designer person?
Yes, an industrial designer, does plastics. And I was like, okay, let's do a new design. And we took a whole new mindset on it and a new approach and said, hey, we could do something simple, snake it in and have a scraper. And I was like, I don't know about that. And so I started calling more people and kind of left that one on the back burner. But then I ended up realizing when he sent me some that this was perfect. I thought from looking at it that it wasn't gonna work. But then when I tried it, it totally did. So right now where we are is in the process of realizing that I've put money into this and I've realized that, okay, I want to go forward with this, but it's the big step now. It's buying a mold, it's going on and actually selling to people and realizing, are they going to love this? Are they going to use this? Will they actually take this into their lab with them?
So, and the idea is that the version that I'm looking at now is made out of metal, looks like.
No, it's actually made out of plastic.
Oh, wow, I see. Well, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so the idea is then that that's the product in different sizes potentially. Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So that's where you are at this point.
Yes.
Right? Just one more series of questions I'm curious about. So I know this is not your first rodeo, as they say. You were part of the High Point Entrepreneurship Program, but I think when I last encountered you, you were working on something different. What was that?
Leopard Electric. So I made a portable power station that has 2 USB, 2 AC units so that you could actually no longer have to move closer to the wall to find an outlet, but be anywhere you wanted to and have an outlet right here.
And I got to confess, when I heard about that, I was a little cynical because I'm going, it's hard enough carrying around a little teeny battery for a cell phone, no less a 30-pound, 20-pound lead brick to do something like this. And well, what happened? Where'd that go?
Well, I started realizing there were some challenges. It was an uphill. I had a lot of drive and energy and I was super excited about it. But then there was uphills of more. I think I learned more as I went through the process. You make your 3D model, you show it off to everyone, and then you go into actually talking to manufacturers, getting CAD files, and the expenses were lining up a lot faster and a lot higher than I knew I could do. And so it's easy to go around and like sell the idea to people. And it was easy to sell the idea to people because it was cool. But I think what happened was that I had to put it on the back burner because it seemed like such a big jump to take the next step. Yet, I might have not been ready for it, but it was super amazing and I love it and it's still around for sure.
It's really interesting, that experience, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs face that, which is that pitching things is reasonably easy. People all say, yes, I love it. But when it comes time to pull out their wallet, all of a sudden there's all kinds of objections you may not have imagined. So are there any particular big lessons you took away from that experience that you applied this time that you said, okay, this time I'm doing things differently?
Oh, absolutely. So being a pharmacy student actually, and not really knowing much about but knowing I wanted to be creative and do entrepreneurship, jumping into the world and being like, oh, okay, I probably have to do all of this by myself. Like I have to be self-sufficient to show other people that I can run a business. So I didn't ask for help. And I spent 4 years not asking for help or trying to see any way that I could solve something, become a semi-expert and do it. And that's true, you can always do that, but it's so easy to ask for help and other people are willing to help you. It's incredible when you think about, hey, I have a simple question. They can give you their expertise and provide you with the knowledge you need to know. So asking for help is something I applied to this new business. I don't have to know how to draw a CAD file.
Well, that's a great segue. I couldn't have asked for a better one in terms of asking for help. Mm-hmm. So how can I help?
Oh my goodness, thank you so much. So I want to know, with this product that I have now, I'm at a point where the only way out is through. And I want to know, should I jump all in, like go big and go home, and do a $10,000 trust fall into building a mold for this?
And what does building the mold get you?
Building the mold would get me an HDPE, like medical grade kind of certified product that I could say, hey, you can use this with your chemical components and it's not going to contaminate your components.
And I'm going to ask a leading question. What else do you think it gets you? And I'll give you some hints. Is it speed? Let's say I said, no, wait, sell some first. You might go, oh no, the mold's going to take, getting from where I am now to production is 6 years because molds take 5 years to build. Is it, in other words, so building the mold now would save you a lot of time. Is it because people don't believe you that you can actually build a mold? In other words, there's a lot of things that doing the mold now versus later gets you. And I wonder if you've thought through those pieces of it.
Okay, I actually haven't thought through what other steps are in between me and the mold.
And not just between you and the mold, these are all steps that are between you and actually having a product which is flying off the shelves.
Yeah.
If in fact, you're using shelves to sell it. And there's a lot of things in addition to molds, because I think a lot of entrepreneurs have similar barriers. I mean, the classic one is, I need to build an app. I need to do this. I need to hire this. And most of the time, it's because they see this progression of steps that has to happen before it's a big, successful company or product. But I don't think they're stepping back and saying, how necessary is this for what I really need to prove? And that's what I'm trying to dig in on, what you really need to prove with this product.
Wow.
So for example, do you know that it's going to sell?
Well, I hope so. That's what I
But you don't know
know.
yet, right?
Yeah.
And how will a mold help you know that?
It won't. I'll just have a ton and I won't know what to do with it if it doesn't. Huh.
The second thing that a mold, the problem I see with the mold, and I'm not necessarily shooting down the mold, because that could be in fact the right step. Molds are fairly irrevocable. In other words, once you have it built, it's little hard to change, or it's $10,000 to get another one made. How are you making these? Are those 3D printed?
Yes, 3D printed. I can make a ton. It's quite easy, yeah, actually.
And is the problem with a 3D printed version that it's not medical grade? I mean, what are the concerns with, let's say you printed 50 of them, and what would be the problem using those? And you can put your doctor at a pharmacy hat on and explain that to me.
So I think contamination and making sure it's sterilizable, and also that it won't contaminate the products we do put in there. Because the drugs, it's like if you're taking Advil and then you don't know if the plastic is interacting with the Advil, it's like, uh-oh, they might be a little resistant to using it.
I'm trying to get a sense of whether the mold is a scaling product. In other words, this is what we need to be able to do 1,000 of them, or whether the mold is a barrier to actually having one which you can sell and be used in the lab. And is it possible to make one which could be used in the lab? Using a variation, avoiding the mold?
I don't know, actually. We've done some product research on what types of materials wouldn't interact. And it's seeming like the more, whatever our components are in, so like acetone or any of our chemicals that we use, that plastic is the plastic that won't interact with the materials. And when I searched online, like, can I print in this special grade plastic? It's seeming like the answer was no to print in it. But yeah.
One more question.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we're all learning a lot more about molds than I think we expected to. How long does it take to do a mold?
So with a few companies out there, depending on where you get your molds as well, some companies are saying we could get it done in 1 month. Some companies are saying we could get it done in 3 months, or some companies are like 8 months or more. And so it's quite interesting.
So you're thinking 2 or 3 months is probably a reasonable plan. And then once you have the mold, you can begin manufacturing in reasonable volume. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I'll answer your question specifically, and then we'll try and make some generalizations out of it. So actually, I'll start with the generalizations. I mean, anything you do in a startup, anything, you have to really ask yourself, do I need to do this? And it's not just a capital N, it's all uppercase, all bolded. You only want to do things you absolutely need, because your time is very, very limited. Certainly your money is even more limited. And so you're trying to say, what are the minimum set of things I need to do to go to the next step? And from where I hear you are, your next step isn't, I have orders for 100,000 of these, and getting the mold is the barrier to producing them. You're still in that place of going, I'm not 100% sure I have the design exactly right. I don't yet have orders all flooding in. And I think the next step toward validating this idea is seeing if you can get orders to flood in. In other words, I would sell it before you finesse how to make it. Okay. And here's the reason. I suspect you're going to go out, and I'll talk about this in just a moment. Talk to some people about buying this. And I have some ideas about that. And you're going to get all kinds of interesting feedback. Hopefully, everyone's going to go, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing. How quickly can you get me 1 million of them? Well, then that's great. But then you say, all right, I need 2 months, 3 months, because I need to make the mold. But believe me, once you have that level of interest, getting $10,000 to build your mold will be trivial. But more likely, you're going to find out something else. And it'll go down 3 paths. One is, like I said, you've nailed it. It's exactly right. Everybody wants it. That's great. You go to the mold. Next path is people say, And then you go, thank God I didn't waste $10,000 on a mold for something that people really don't want in any volume. And probably, I won't say more likely, but the third path is you get this feedback that says, we love it, but can it be or this or that? Or you begin to do something like that. Or you find some usage which does not require the sterilization, all those things, so that you can get someone using it, doing the job that you're doing, giving you feedback on what works and what doesn't work. And then you go, okay, now I'm learning each time how to make this mold even better. In other words, manufacturing a product is a nasty, nasty form of entrepreneurship because it's so inflexible. In other words, software stuff and services, if you do something and it doesn't work and you don't like it, no problem. It's as an old CEO I worked with used to call it, it's a SMOP, a simple matter of programming. In other words, you can fix it really easily and change it. You can't change that easily. You manufacture it, your first box of 500 goes out someplace, and they come back and say, this doesn't work for us or we don't like it. You can't easily fix it. So before you actually set it in stone or whatever molds are made of, make sure you know exactly what you're doing, unless the mold is the barrier to your next step of validation. I don't think it is. So I'll take this opportunity to play with what your next step of validation might be. And to me, it seems self-evident, and I hope you can challenge me on it, is I think you should start selling it. You start taking orders. Once you have, because I think, if you can get I don't think you need to have a box full of them to take an order. I really don't. This is not like French fries, where you take the order and I want to serve them tomorrow. This is something they're going to use in the lab for years. And so whether it comes in 2 months or 2 weeks or 2 days, I think is fairly secondary. I think they're going to say either this is an amazing thing or they're going to go ho-hum. So I think the best way to prove which side of that it is, whether it's on the ho-hum side or the amazing side, is to actually sell it to somebody. And you do not, if you think about what most medical salespeople do, they don't say, well, I'll take 100 of those. They don't go out to their trunk of their car and bring them in. They take the order and then they fulfill it. And it depends how long it is. And I think you should be in the same situation. Because if you can really sell it, you will know for sure that you've got the right design. And then you can begin backpedaling and say, whoa, it's going to take me a couple of months because I need to build the mold. And because of that, I'm going to cut you a deal. Okay?
Okay.
So who do you think is going to buy this?
Oh my goodness. So I'm hoping labs and college campuses that have any organic chemistry students, anywhere that there's a rotovap, actually, a rotary evaporator, that they will also buy this because they're going to be using these types of flasks. So
how many rotary evaporators does High Point have?
So they have about 5 evaporators per lab room. And then we have about 3 lab rooms on each floor. So that's about 15 each floor. And then we have, so maybe about 30.
Now, let's talk. You're going to learn a shitload here about rotary evaporators in a minute, so hold on tight. So it's selling to why sell to universities? Is that like where most rotary evaporators end up? It would seem like they would all be in commercial labs or in a drug company would probably have 500 of them.
Yeah, well, that's actually true too. So they could be my customers. Anyone that has a round bottom flask really could be a customer.
How many round bottom flasks do they sell in a year?
Oh, that is a good question. I should look that up. But I do know that they sell about $17.1 million of spatulas a year.
Of these little things.
Of these guys, yes.
What is a spatula? What are these called? A round bottom spatula?
No, these are just called spatulas. So they're used for different purposes in the lab, but mainly for this purpose.
So what would one of these run me?
$7 on Amazon.
$7?
And you can get 4 of them, which is kind of a problem.
$7 for this thing?
Yeah.
Man, I'm in the wrong business. So a couple things. I'd go where the volume is.
Okay.
So universities are great because they're going to be very tolerant of a student coming in and pitching. But what are you going to sell? They have 30 of these evaporators. What are they going to buy? 30 of them? Less. They're going to buy one per floor? I mean, why waste your time with that?
Okay.
First of all, figure out where the evaporators are going, because that's where these things follow. Figure out where the flasks are going. That's where these things follow. Who makes this? LeBoy. So have you talked to LeBoy yet?
I haven't, no.
Do you have IP protection on it at all?
Yes, absolutely.
So go to LeBoy. Go to, talk to Mr. Erlenmeyer or Mr. Bunsen, or I don't know, whoever is in charge of these things. Because the ideal way to sell this is you go, every time you're going to buy a case of 240 flasks, why don't we throw in what do you call this thing?
Flasky.
Oh, Flasky. We should throw in 20 Flaskies. Mm-hmm. And the thing is, for them, it's a way to differentiate their, listen to me now, round-bottomed flask. Is that right?
Yes.
They're flat bottom. What is it? Round bottom or flat bottom?
Round bottom.
Oh, yeah, I see. It's a way to differentiate their round-bottomed flask from someone else's round-bottomed flask. In other words, go where the flasks are. Mm-hmm. Go where the evaporators are. Go to a hospital lab. Go to you know way more now about labs than I do. So you spent 30 minutes with this ridiculous little thing compared to 3 minutes or whatever the difference is. So great. The free labor basically saved 27 minutes. The place this counts is in a lab where that time is real money. Mm-hmm. And you want to find where that is. It's not in the university. Oh. They don't care. Mm-hmm. It's in a place where you're paying that lab tech $40 or $50, $40 an hour, $30 an hour, or whatever it is, and that time is money.
With working in my lab, we do products that are new drug discovery. And so new drug discovery has a lot of costs involved. And so sometimes you're putting components in that could be worth $60,000. And with the current tools we use, we get about 60% of the whole flask volume of being able to get out the whole components that we already put in. So we work super hard with these old tools. But if you were to use my tool, I could raise that percentage up to 90%.
Oh, you mean so the material that's in the container which you extract with the scraper is not waste. It's good stuff.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, that's actually really compelling. So there's a whole nother dimension to this besides just the labor savings, which is where I was going with it. Actually, there's material savings. I mean, how much do you think this represents? Have you done the math and said, here's what it is in my lab, and if I could extrapolate that across a bigger industry?
Absolutely. So in our lab, we would save about 2,500 per set of drugs, and we do about 25 sets of drugs a year. So it would be incredible if a lab that's doing commercial products like down the road, or labs that are all across the country, labs in other states other continents are also doing just the same science and can save just as much or even more money. And the idea is that you will save more money if you're either doing more drugs or more expensive drugs.
Fascinating. I had envisioned this was a testing product where you run the test and you dispose the contents, and this was a way to make it less disgusting. But I get it. You're actually formulating something which has commercial value, and this increases the yield.
Yes.
Fascinating. I think all of these things are ones that you test in your various presentations to customers. Again, this is not talking to people and saying, do you like it? It's actually going out and watching whether their pupils dilate in financial excitement over how you're going to increase the yield of our lab. Really compelling, Ivana. Well, thanks.
Thank you. Yeah. And I did have one question also. So people complain about this problem all the time, but they're conditioned to overlook their problems because they know that the end goal is patient care or delivering medications. What would you say to introducing solutions like this?
You have got to find the person who cares. And that's the key piece of this, is you've got to find the person who actually cares about this. And there is someone for whom their job performance is being measured on what their yield is, who is the person who's supervising all the lab techs, and are being measured on the fact that, hey, I've been able to do the same amount of work with one fewer person. You've got to identify that person, and that person will resonate with them. Selling it on peace and love feels good, but usually isn't sufficient to get someone to crack open their wallet.
Thank you.
Okay, Ivana. So I'm going to send you off with that advice. You have some homework now. And I know you have all kinds of extra time. But I think you do have some credibility, and I think you can, and certainly I can tell already that you can be a persuasive person when you want to be. But it's going to require getting out of your lab gear and putting on your sales suit and seeing if you can sell these in some volume. In addition to figuring out whether the product is right, you're going to learn whether the pricing is right. You're going to learn who the right target customer is. And those are all things I would love you to know before you spend $10,000 on a mold.
Thank you so much, Marc. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. Well, good luck. And when I'm back, hopefully doing this again on campus soon, I will check in with you, and I'm really curious to hear how it went.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you've got an entrepreneurial question and you'd like to be a guest on the That Will Never Work podcast, I would love to talk with you. Just come to markrandolph.com/guest and apply.